what's up, everybody. Say what's up as you come in the chat. Hit that like button for me, please, guys. Say what's up as you come in the chat. Say where you're watching from and hit that like button for me, guys. It takes the channel a long way. It takes the video a long way. We're hitting that algorithm by you guys hitting that like button, so I appreciate you. With that being said, welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Karen Smith. Call me Q, and we are on the corner. What is up, guys? We're on the corner. Welcome to the daily live stream. Let me go ahead and jump right into what we'll be digesting tonight. Really short clips tonight. I only got about 36 minutes of video time. I'm going to be letting them play for the most part. So I'm going to get right into what we're going to be watching. And then tomorrow we're going to circle back to some news that we looked at over the weekend, which would be Friday and Saturday. And then just some more new stuff. So we're going to touch back on a few things. Some of that's in here tonight, but very short clips. So first up on the menu is Trump says he doesn't know if he has to uphold the Constitution. Shout out to WBIR Channel 10. President Trump says he doesn't know if he has to uphold the Constitution. I don't know how much I believe that headline. We're going to take that with a grain of salt, but we're going to check it out. Then we're going to jump over to, shout out to the New York Post, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth orders 20% reduction in 4-star generals. So this I thought was quite interesting. I'm not going to say that I was necessarily against it. I listened to him. I understand where he's coming from. As someone who served in the military, I can see where he's coming from with it. I forgot what year he mentioned, but he says at one point in time we had only 17 4-star generals, which that was one general every 6,000 troops, I believe. And then he says now we have 44 4-star general, which that's like every one general is like 1,400 troops. To every one general, 1,400 troops, yeah, versus 1 to every 6,000. So I was kind of like, wow, when you put it into perspective like that, it kind of hits home differently. So I mean, you know, we know they're cutting and they're slashing and they're slicing and dicing. So this happens to be another thing that's a part of it. So we'll take a look at that. Then we'll jump over to Court TV. Jury selection to begin for Sean Diddy Combs' federal case. Diddy's case began, his whole trial began today, but I don't think it's the full trial. It looks like they're doing this jury selection. So if they're just now at the jury selection, it wouldn't be the trial day yet, but we'll take a look at it. Then we got 4th and 1 with Cam Newton. Shout out to Cam Newton. Cam Newton's reaction to Shannon Sharpe situation. This is his full clip from a longer podcast episode he had. Then we're going to jump over to CNN. Van Jones asked Black Trump supporters if they would vote for him again. Here are their answers. So I thought this was extremely, I thought this was hilarious because I know Van Jones wasn't expecting a lot of the answers that, let's just call them Black MAGA for lack of terms. Let's just say that. So Black MAGA, right? I know he wasn't expecting a lot of their answers, especially when he asked some of them, would you vote for Trump again? And they all pretty much said yes. So I thought that was hilarious. So yeah, we'll jump into that. And then the last clip of the night, we'll end the live stream with a clip from Cliff Buell. Shout out to Cliff. He's a YouTube content creator. Puts out Christian content for the most part. Has well over 600,000 subscribers and growing. Check out his channel if you guys get a chance. So let's jump into the first clip. WBIR Channel 10. President Trump says he doesn't know if he has to uphold the Constitution. Let's see what that's about.
An interview on NBC's Meet the Press Sunday morning is drawing lots of attention about how President Trump views the Constitution and his obligation as president.
The president also defended his tariffs, even though experts say it could put the U.S. at risk of falling into a recession. NBC's Julie Sirkin has details from that interview and reaction from D.C.
Touchdown for Washington, D.C. President Trump announcing the nation's capital as host of the 2027 NFL Draft, possibly on the National Mall.
Very, very amazing, I think, for D.C., but even for the country.
The news comes ahead of Trump hosting a key player in his tariff turf war, the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Amid the ongoing trade war and Trump's threats to make Canada a 51st state, the relationship with one of the U.S.'s strongest allies has soured.
They all want to make a deal because we have something that they all want.
The administration on Monday also threatening tariffs on all foreign-made movies. as Trump doubled down on his tariff policy over the weekend during an exclusive interview on Meet the Press, insisting the strategy would eventually bring back manufacturing to the U.S., but in the short term, acknowledging Americans could face pain, including higher prices, supply shortages, and a possible recession.
Is it okay in the short term to have a recession?
This. Look, yes, everything's okay. What we are, I said, this is a transition period. I think we're going to do fantastically.
The president.
Let's run that back real quick.
Recession.
Is it okay in the short term to have a recession?
This. Look, yes, everything's okay.
Man, at this point, you just have to understand your president in the way that he trolls. This lady said, is it okay in the short term to have a recession? And President Trump says, yeah, you know, everything's okay. The first time I heard him respond to that, I told my wife, I'm like, dude, he's trolling so bad and he doesn't care. But I mean, he goes more in depth as to why he's saying what he's saying. But you gotta just think about his answer first up. Like when the lady asked the question, he's like, yeah, you know, everything's okay. And it's just kind of like, some people are like, no, everything's not okay. I'm losing my mind. But that's President Trump's answer.
Everything's okay. What we are, I said, this is a transition period. I think we're going to do fantastically.
The president playing the blame game and only taking credit for the positives.
I think the good parts are the Trump economy and the bad parts are the Biden economy because he's done a terrible job. He did a terrible job.
NBC's Kristen Welker pressed the president on his immigration crackdown and mass deportation efforts. Asked whether every person in the U.S., regardless of citizenship status, deserves due process, which is guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment.
What's up, man? Hi, how you doing? Hit that like button for me. Thanks for stopping by.
Even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me. And they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said.
Though in
talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution?
This deserves due process, which is guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment.
We'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me. And they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said.
Though.
Okay, so she's asking, don't you feel like you have to uphold the Constitution? So she's referring to the Fifth Amendment, which would be referring to due process. So that's why she's asking him, like, don't you feel like you have to uphold that? And that's why he's saying we would have to have 1 or 2 million different cases. And he says, I don't know. He says, I have brilliant lawyers that are going to uphold the law and do what the Supreme Court says. So this is where the whole headline comes from. Trump says he doesn't know if he has to uphold the Constitution. I think they're taking that out of context a little bit. That's why I only took it with a grain of salt. Right?
In fact, the Supreme Court has already ruled the Trump administration must allow immigrants basic due process rights.
Julie Sirkin reporting there at the Capitol. Former House Speaker and Democrat Nancy Pelosi criticized the president's latest proposal to reopen and expand Alcatraz. That notorious prison and island off of San Francisco has been closed for years because it was in decay.
I can pay you cash for your house, no matter what condition it.
Okay, did President Trump bring that up? I want to hear that again. That's crazy.
And expand Alcatraz. That Democrat Nancy Pelosi criticized the president's latest proposal to reopen and expand Alcatraz. That notorious prison and island off of San Francisco has been closed for years because it was in decay.
Wow, Alcatraz, yeah. Nancy Pelosi, of course she has a problem with it. She wants everyone to be free. She wants all the criminals to be free. That's why Nancy Pelosi has a problem with it. All right, guys, so we're going to jump over to, shout out to the New York Post. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth orders 20% reduction in 4-star generals. Let's take a listen.
We're back with more DoD reforms. This one is General and Flag Officer Reductions. That's the official title. My title is Less Generals, More GIs. It's a historic one, and it's in keeping with President Trump's commitment to achieving peace through strength. We're going to shift resources from bloated headquarters elements to our warfighters. Let's take a bit of a trip down memory lane. In history, when we were fighting across the globe during World War II, we had a force that was 12 million strong. For that 12 million man element, we had 17 4- and 5-star generals.
12 million.
Today, we have 2.1 million service members with 44 4-star and flag officers. So it used to be a ratio of 1 general to 6,000 troops. Today, it's 1 general to 1,400. More generals and admirals does not equal more success. Now, this is not a slash and burn exercise meant to punish high-ranking officers. Nothing could be further from the truth. This has been a deliberative process, working with the Joint Chiefs of Staff with one goal: maximizing strategic readiness and operational effectiveness by making prudent reductions in the general and flag officer ranks. So there's 2 phases here. Phase 1, we're looking at our current service structure. And in phase 2, it's a strategic review of the Unified Command Plan. Now, this is going to be, we think, the most comprehensive review since the Goldwater-Nichols Defense Reorganization Act of 1986. That was a generational change in combat command structures, planning, training, geographic areas of responsibility, mission, and operational responsibilities. So as I said, it's going to happen in 2 phases. The result of phase 1 is a minimum of 20% reduction of 4-star and flag officers for active duty elements, and a minimum of 20% reduction of general and flag officers in the National Guard Bureau. Phase 2 will produce a minimum of an additional 10% reduction of overall general and flag officers throughout the DoD, in conjunction with a realignment of the Unified Command Plan. It's going to be done carefully, but it's going to be done expeditiously. We confront a complex and evolving threat environment. We cannot afford to wait. We got to be lean and mean, and in this case, it means general officer reductions.
Mr. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. Okay, so what do we think about that? 20-30% reduction in 4-star flag officers. I mean, hey, there's always the concept too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? I mean, when we had a larger military, we had 17 generals, we had 17 4-stars, 1 to every 6,000, whereas now it's 44, so it's 1 to every 1,400. I mean, if we think about protecting the higher ranking officer, it's easier for 6,000 men to protect their general than it is for 1,400 men to protect their general. Listen, I'm not saying things like I want to see people lose their jobs, but every time we start talking about military and foreign policy, you guys know I'm going to chime in on this because I served in the military. So if you're asking me, well, Q, do you support such a huge reduction in the military? I'll say this: if the reduction makes sense, sure. If it makes sense, just because it's a reduction doesn't necessarily mean it's a failed military, right? Just because listen, there are countries that could, let's say form a larger military. That doesn't necessarily mean it would be more powerful, right? If anything, based on what I know about our military, I would look at it like that's just more casualties. That's just more people that are going to die on that country's side, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that just because they're larger in numbers that they're greater in power. It doesn't mean that. If we're going to be reducing, then we're going to be reducing in it. And I don't think that Pete Hegseth, someone who also has served in the military, is going to reduce to a point where it would be dangerous for the military. I think he's smarter than that. Now, I know a lot of people don't like him, and I think a lot of the reasons that they don't like him are, I mean, I'm not going to say they shouldn't be worrisome, but I think they're childish. Some people are like, oh, well, I saw him at this conference or this dinner, and he had a drink or 2 in his hand, and it's like, okay, whatever. He wasn't in a professional setting where he had to be, I don't think he was drunk, but I'm saying he wasn't in a professional setting where they were requiring him, I don't think, to be completely sober and or do a speech or anything like that or of that capacity. So that's when I think people are just kind of being facetious and petty about things like that. But when it comes to him doing his job and operating as the defense secretary, I think he does well in this area. And I don't think that he would reduce to the point where the military would be in trouble. So let's see, right? A reduction in 4-star generals and flag officers. I think that it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think that necessarily means that the military is going to be chaos because there's less supervision either. You know, if anything, I think that it'll get a lot tighter. And there are reasons why I would believe that. As someone who's been on active duty, I've just seen how things go when rankings change, when there are reduced numbers, when things have to tighten up, and they actually get a lot sharper. That's just what the United States military does. You know, they adapt and overcome. That's one of the things we said in the Marine Corps all the time. Change is gonna come. You know, change is not so we are to be paralyzed, to be left stagnant. It's just so we adapt to it and we overcome it. So now we're gonna jump over to Court TV. Shout out to Court TV. They have jury selection to begin for Sean Diddy Combs' federal case. So like I said, I don't think that the actual case itself, like the trial, has started, but it looks like they're on jury selection. So let's take a listen.
All right, now let's talk about what is tipping the scales of justice. Jury selection kicks off today in the trial for Sean Diddy Combs in federal court in New York, where he's accused of sex trafficking. Now, no cameras allowed because it's federal court. Unfortunately, they should change that law. That's another discussion for another day. Diddy's pleaded not guilty to this 5-count indictment. He's looking at decades in prison if he's convicted. But his attorneys say they are ready to fight.
He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent. And we're going to fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight anymore.
150 prospective jurors will be showing up in person for the questioning to be done by the court over the next few days. So what kind of jurors will each side be looking for? Let's talk about that. Who would you want ideally on this case if you were either one of the prosecutors or one of Diddy's defense attorneys? Let's bring in attorney Tommy Pope and welcome in entertainment commentator Holland Reed. Okay, so the ideal jurors. Let's start with the prosecutors. And it is an all-female team of prosecutors who's prosecuting Diddy. So who ideally might they be looking for here? Holland, would you start us off? Who do you think might be a great juror from the government's perspective?
Now, they're going to talk about how an all-female prosecution team is not by accident, but I do think that that's crazy. Like, what do you guys think about that? All-female prosecution team prosecuting Diddy. I mean, he's going to talk about how this isn't on accident. I don't think it's on accident by any means, but just knowing some of the stories that we know have come out since he's actually been in prison, and for them to intentionally make sure that the whole entire prosecution team is female, I'm like, oh man, that's crazy.
Oh gosh, Julie, that's a hard question because it's going to be almost impossible to find a biased, impartial juror who does not know Puff Daddy, Diddy, Sean, whatever you want to call him. I'm thinking someone that is not going to be easily weirded out by some of the context of the materials that's going to be given to them as evidence. Someone that is okay with looking at really, I would have to say disgusting evidence across the board. Someone that maybe doesn't care for his music. It's really going to be hard to get 12 jurors that do not know who he is and doesn't have an opinion, given this is such a huge trial in the entertainment industry and media.
Right. Oh, and you hit on some really great things. Maybe someone who's not a fan, doesn't like him. If you're a prosecutor, yeah, and like you said, who's not afraid to look at the unpleasant evidence that's surely coming their way. Yeah, I love those points. Tommy, you were a sensational prosecutor. You were solicitor in South Carolina, put away Susan Smith. She's still behind bars, thank goodness for that. Tell me, who ideally or would you be looking for on this one?
Well, what I've just learned is I shouldn't have gone to law school because Holland nailed it without even having a law school.
She did, I know.
What I've got to add. I used to always tell people, with our jury strikes that I was looking for just truly, this sounds cliche, but discerning jurors, and I agree with Holland. They're going to see and hear some things that, they may have never been exposed to. Obviously, to be truly fair, You don't, maybe they're going to board iron these questions of, do you like his music? Do you not? Do you have any racial bias? Do you not? And so I just want a discerning juror, particularly if they have the volume of evidence that they believe they do, because with numerous counts, there's going to be technicalities and sorting out the evidence, and it's going to take a unique juror. It's like, I agree, it's going to be rare somebody that hadn't heard something about it, and the judge always throws in, can you set that aside? And you got to be careful, because sometimes people want to be on juries and high-profile juries, and that can be dangerous for both sides. And so you've got to kind of watch that. But people that can truly set it aside and be rational and discerning really plays well. And now flip to the defense. I think that if they truly believe in their case, then they would want the same type of jurors. But I'm sure you'll ask that question in a minute.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, my friend. Yes, so the defense side, let's go there. So who might they want? Are they looking for fans? Perhaps kind of the opposite. Holland, you were saying, like, if you're on the government side, maybe somebody who doesn't care for him or his music or whatever, thinks he's too rich or whatever advice they might have. What about the people the defense is looking for? Who would you?
Which I felt like, as far as them looking for people who might not be fans of him and not know him well, which they can't make the whole entire jury full of Gen Z, obviously, right? They can't do that, because you want to look for a jury full of someone's peers. Essentially, I think like a younger crowd, definitely, they're not going to be that into who P. Diddy is. Now, when you step into the millennial generation, especially if you're doing, I think she said 35 and up, but especially if you're in like the 30, 32-ish realm and up, like those people are pretty much going to know who Diddy is. Probably even some people in their 40s are going to know who he is as well, and probably some in their 50s. So I really only see him being around. I only see the younger generation not being too associated with him and not feeling like, oh, it's P. Diddy, and just kind of being like, all right, it's Puffy or whatever.
Ideally want if you're Diddy and his team, Holland?
Oh, I'm gonna go right back to that original point. It's gonna be very hard to find someone that does not know who he is. So I think you're also in the state of New York. He's from New York, so maybe people that have a little bit more sympathy for him say, hey, this is just a lifestyle. This is what he did. Everybody was consensual. Someone that just thinks that this is what you do when you're a celebrity or when you're from a big city. I'm gonna think and hope that people will, like, as Pope said, be discerning in this. This is going to be really tricky.
Right. No, it really is. And what about, between men and women? I wanted to ask you both that question. Tommy, what do you think for the Diddy defense team? Are you wanting more men, more women? How would you go?
I think it cuts into two slices. I think as far as men, going back to what Holland said, that it's kind of just a lifestyle. It may not be your lifestyle. It may be some that some of the men would aspire to, and so I think you look for men like that. I think you look for people that distrust the system in general. Maybe they've had a bad experience with an arrest that they didn't do. You can almost ask a board-hour question, something to the effect, have you or a friend ever been charged with a crime that you didn't commit, or something like that, if that was permitted by the judge. But I think people that, we're supposed to come in balanced, but I think what you're really looking for is people that, think that he's getting railroaded, and, and that demographic of folks that just think they picked on him for whatever reason. And, you only need one. The prosecution needs 12. You only need one to hang a jury.
That's true. I really think he's got a great shot at a fair trial, because when you think just the general public, probably most people are fans and like his music, or at least appreciate and respect what he's done, even if you don't care for the music, at least, and then makes you wonder, okay, we know he had a lot of civil suits. Is this about money? So I think he's really going to get a fair trial. Holland, last question. I just need a real quick answer. What do you think about the age group? If you're Diddy's team, would you go for like people in their 30s and 40s who probably grew up with the music?
You better.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to go anywhere from, I would say, 35 to 45 to 50, and I think that's going to be a sweet spot age group. People that are fans that have followed him, that respect his work.
Right. I'm with you, Holland. I think he's definitely going to get a fair trial. This is not going to be an easy case for the government, that's for sure. Tommy and Holland, we have to leave it there for now. Tommy, you're going to come with us and give us analysis on the Karen Reed trial. And Holland, I know you're a busy person. You're an actress, photographer, all of that, speaker. We need to let you get on with your day. But thank you for the commentary on this case. We'll see you back here next week, I hope. And that is all for this episode of Opening Statements, friends. You can watch it again.
So she said, Holland says 35 to 45, to even up to 50. And I said that. I said that demographic, that age demographic is going to know, like, who Sean is, who P. Diddy is, who Puffy is, Sean Puffy Combs, whatever you call him. Like, those of us who are around that age range, we know all of the names for Diddy. We know what he's been called in the past and all of that stuff. So, yeah, definitely if you are going for someone who... if you're going for someone who is going to be in support of him, someone who, I thought the other gentleman made a great point, someone who feels like they've been done wrong by the system, who they've been charged wrongfully, they feel like he's being railroaded as a black man or even as a successful business entrepreneur and rapper. All of those things are gonna come into play. And if you're looking for that type of group, that's where Diddy's gonna have some support. So when they say, like, I feel like he's gonna get a fair trial, there's a chance, because like he said, you need 12 jurors, but it only takes one person to hang a jury, right? It only takes one person. All 11 people can say, like, yeah, we think he did this, we think he's scum. We're going to lock him away forever. He needs 10, 15, 20 years, whatever. And someone else could be like, no, I don't think that there was any motive here. I think that this is somebody that just made a lot of money and slipped into a lifestyle and things got out of control, and that's it. And that person can hang the jury, mistrial, whatever. So we'll see what happens. We'll be following Diddy's case for sure as the near future comes. Next up, 4th and 1 with Cam Newton. Shout out to Cam Newton. I watch Cam all the time.
Oh, first down.
Very often, if not every other day. It's usually at least, let's say 3 times a week, especially if I'm catching up on podcasts. All right, so this clip is about Cam Newton's reaction to Shannon Sharpe's situation. I got a chance to watch some of this, a shorter clip elsewhere. I will say that I agree with Cam Newton here about a lot of things. Shannon Sharpe, when it comes to the black community and really in the sports community in general, he's he's considered to be to a lot of different people. So I think I don't think it's great that this is happening to him. I really don't like it. But we're going to take a look. We're going to be following it. And we're just hoping for the best, for Shannon Sharpe. We're hoping that these allegations aren't true, because Bugs B is involved in it. The Bug Man, I'm highly suspicious of it, because we know that, and Cam Newton talks about it, we know that he has gone after high-profile black individuals and tried to take them down in cases that have later turned out to be fraudulent or have had no validity attached to them. So just because Bugs B's involved, I'm skeptical anyway. But let's take a look at what Cam got to say about this. Let's take a look.
Here we go, first down. Fire Woman of the Week. Let's see what we got.
Well, it's been heating up, so we have to talk about Shay Shay's world. All right, Shannon Sharpe is under fire right now. It came out to the public that he was finishing up his deal soon with the volume and on the verge of $100 million deal, upwards of $100 million deal. But then allegations came out, all right? So it's a 21-year-old woman, I think the age is 20 or 21, accused him, Shannon Sharpe, of rape, abuse, and threats in Nevada civil lawsuit. So she filed a lawsuit April 20th against Shannon Sharpe, and this young lady came out, and this lawsuit was for $50 million. But let's just talk about everything that has been happening with Shannon Sharpe and, your thoughts, and just talk about the facts of what we have seen. Because we don't know the full story, it's still developing, but we have to talk about it.
I think I want to start this off with a very serious note. No matter who you are, no matter the age, no matter the race, no matter, what the circumstances entail, we do not subscribe to any type of sexual assault of any kind. I think what's tough about this is that when you talk about the individual Shannon Sharpe, and this has been a person to me that I can call on as a friend. This is a person to me who I can call as an advisor, and just flat out, this is a person who I look up to.
Yeah.
You don't expect to have people of his caliber associated with this type of issue.
For sure.
And I think that's what was, while everybody was taking a step back. And this is a perfect case of facts versus public opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I say is my honest opinion.
Yeah.
This is not me taking sides or me insinuating that somebody's guilty or innocent.
Correct.
By any stretch of the imagination. I hope everything works out. But just the person who, Shannon Sharpe is a person who I hold in high regard.
Correct.
As a person that it's like, he's on to everybody.
To everybody, yeah.
So this is not a joking matter, more so to say hold on, what does the facts indicate? We do know that Tony Busby has been on the front line of trying to expose very well-known African Americans. He was a part of the Deshaun Watson case. He was also a part of, the Diddy lawsuit. He was also a part of the case of Jay-Z.
Yeah.
So what we know as facts has shown itself and constantly showing itself. Mm-hmm. And I think when you take a step and kind of have your own observation. What doesn't look good? There's multiple things that does not look good. The obvious is the age difference.
Yeah.
And I'm not insinuating anything. This is still this is my opinion that I have. Right, wrong, or indifferent. And this is not me saying I'm taking the side of, Shay, because we don't ascribe to anybody in a sexual assault case.
Correct.
All right? It's just unfortunate that these individuals have to go through this publicly.
Correct.
And I look at it and will say this to anybody. No matter who you are, be careful.
Yes.
No matter what you got going on, popping, not popping, successful, unsuccessful, just be careful. Mm-hmm. Human rights is real.
That's real.
No means no. And we're living in a day and age where, yes, people have the right to feel offended and feel any type of way. Yeah. So that's not denying that specific fact. And as things start to develop, and it's still a developing story.
It is. So we don't know all the facts now.
For sure.
Stuff comes out every day, yeah.
And it is, when you see things develop, his image will take a hit. Shannon Sharpe has been a person in media that is relatable to the culture. You will hope that he's innocent, but you don't want to be misogynistic to the young lady and to discredit what she feels to be an assault.
Yeah.
So dare I speak on something that is still a developing story. I just know who Shannon Sharpe is to me.
Yeah.
And we've tried to not speak on this case as much as possible as it is developing, because I do not want to be biased.
Mm-hmm.
Me neither.
Because I owe a service and understanding that, when you speak your opinion, it can still come off as a certain type of way.
Correct.
I heard what Stephen A. Smith spoke about on his platform, mm-hmm. and it was masterfully said. We all have somebody we report to, no matter who you are.
Exactly.
Over this past weekend, I had the opportunity to speak at a Black Effect that was head and led by Charlemagne, a beautiful platform that he curated with his team. And there was something that he said that I'll share with you. Freedom of speech is not free.
Mm.
Everything that you say comes with a price. Mm. Everything that you do also comes with a price. And I've learned this in my own right, Ped.
Yeah, that's what I want to dive into.
But hear me out, and this is why it's so near and dear to me. I had a conversation with Shannon around November, December. Every time he's in Atlanta, he'll stop by, the fellowship, have a dinner, and just kick it. And one of the main things that he says, Cam, you gotta stop cursing.
Mm.
And I'm like, man, no, bro, Nah, he said, bro, listen to me. When you playing the corporate game, this ain't you selling yourself, but you gotta play by their rules. You gotta ask yourself, does a brand want to align with your moral compass? So when I take a challenge to say, you know what, there's a lot of things that I have to change about myself, and there's people who I take counsel from, the Omari Collins of the world, the R.J. Mathises of the world, the Kristen Myers of the world, the Cecil Newtons of the world, the Jackie Newtons of the world, Kaylin, CJ. Everybody has a way to get through to me when I may be in my own way.
Yeah.
It's not what you're saying, Ken, it's how you're saying it.
Yeah.
Shannon also advised me on that. He's like, bro, what I'm doing in Nightcap and what I'm doing with Shay Shay, it's like, bro, you can do it too. So it hits a little different when this is a person who you listen to. This is a person who you are a fan of.
Yeah.
This is a person who you have aspirations to be as well.
Yeah.
A football player who's evolved into this media juggernaut, and it's just unfortunate.
Yeah.
But to this point where we're living in an era where everybody calls themselves, oh, I'm a boss. But even a boss, in most situations, have to answer to somebody.
Well, that's what I was saying. When I heard this, is like the true boss has the most bosses. And meaning that you answer to so many other people that's helping push you and your company on. Whether it's your fans, whether it's your employees. And a lot of times too, it's like as you grow as a businessman, we have had conversations. It's like, now it's a certain level of pressure and responsibility on you. Because there's so many people's livelihoods that is predicated off of the decisions of what Cam Newton is making. You know what I'm saying? Even on this show, this platform of what we talk about, that's predicating on people's livelihood as they feed their families. And, it's a certain level of weight, but it's good weight that you carry because as we talk, and I know Stephen A. said this, is you have to stay within certain barriers. Right. You know what I'm saying? Not even just, it's not pushing yourself, but it's really, everybody has barriers. Right. Everybody has ramifications to keep them alive, to keep them upright. You know what I'm saying? We just can't be lawless out here just doing whatever. Not saying Shannon is that way or whatever. I'm just talking about in general. Yeah. And just as a man and as a human being, man, woman, whatever, it is, all barriers aren't bad. You know what I'm saying? Right. They keep you aligned. They keep you focused. They keep you growing. And so, man, that's just my little 2 cents about it, And
it's not love, baby. Don't love.
Not love 2 cents. That's my point about it.
In no way, shape, form are we implying that he's right and she's wrong.
Correct.
But what I am saying is just unfortunate
that this is a situation.
That this is now public ridicule. Mm-hmm. And we're playing a game of facts versus public opinion. Mm-hmm. He knows that he's playing a game that has millions, if not billions of dollars as a weight to say, oh, I can't unlock this because I have this. Not only with this particular lawsuit that came out, it was another one that...
And even outside of the money, just the morals, the morale of just the person. You know what I'm saying? Because money, business is one thing, but just being able to stand out in the public, and like you just said, man, you everybody uncle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, even as this situation unfolds, you just hope that doesn't take a hit of just everybody saying like, that's You know what I'm saying? Because when you say that comes just with a level of respect.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, listen, I'll aim with this, man. I think that, me personally, I would like to say that I'm a boss. When you think about Iconic Saga, we have a president in Kristen Myers who's doing an unbelievable job, and so much that happens behind the scenes. We have unbelievable editors, and Double D and Jimbo, and the likes of yourself with filtering what we should publish and what we shouldn't. But this is a word to everybody. The boss doesn't mean that you just get to recoup all the dividends of what the company is. What I've learned to be true is the boss means that you're the biggest servant. So for the people who have this thought process of, man, I get to do whatever I want to do. How you call yourself boss and you got so many bosses that you report to. Yeah, but that's a flex to some, but that's also ignorance to people too, because we all report to somebody. The greatest of the great, the smallest of the small. And to the words that my father would always say, you can't be mindful. Because one day, you could be on top of the world. And the next day, the world can be on top of you.
That's a smart man. That's good advice. But you know, to something Cam Newton said, they touched on Stephen A. Smith talking about boundaries, right? This one. Hold on, y'all. I'm looking for a Bible verse real quick. Yeah, so they referenced Stephen A. Smith, where he talked about boundaries, and I actually got a chance to watch Stephen A's podcast when he talked about that and how we all have somebody to answer to. 110% right. We all do, even the boss, right? At the end of the day, I don't think that there's a problem with having any boundaries around you. You know, he said there's nothing wrong with having a lot of boundaries around you, Cam Newton's co-host. But I don't think there's a problem with having any or a lot around you. As a matter of fact, that's one way that I live my life daily. That's a lifestyle for me, having boundaries around me. There's a lot of boundaries around me that I have set to where it is a hard no for me, right? And it took me time to get there. Some people, they see me exercise this in my life and they're like, you know, I just can't be like you, or I just can't get to that point because I just can't say no. And I have to often tell them, like, you know, this wasn't an overnight thing. Like, it took me years to get to this point. And what I had to realize through therapy and spiritual counseling and my mentors was that if anything, no boundaries made me more of a dangerous person than having many boundaries around me. So I have lots of guardrails around me. I have a respect for people who live with guardrails around them, and it tells you a lot about a person, right? Even the Apostle Paul talks about we can do whatever we want, but everything we do is not beneficial, right? So just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Doesn't mean you should give yourself the liberty to do it, or you should even make a pathway where you can walk down that way, right? Some boundaries in my life entail me blocking myself completely off from things. Now, some people might say, well, that means you don't have self-control. No, I actually do. It's a fruit of the spirit, right? So that's the reason why I would set things up in a way where I would be completely blocked off from certain things, because there is a point of self-control at play to where I know, like, hey, if you do this, like, this doesn't work out well for you. So the controlling factor is that I know better, so I won't allow it. I will put things up to where that cannot happen. And that's a very important factor. So, you know, Stephen A. Smith talked about this when it comes to Shannon Sharpe. Everybody has the answer to somebody. Cam Newton talked about this too, about boundaries and guardrails. And I think these are things that, especially as men, need to really be paid attention to. I think they are the difference between life and death, if I'm transparent with you guys. All right, so jumping over to CNN. Not my favorite mainstream media to watch at all, but nonetheless, Van Jones asked Black Trump supporters if they would vote for him again. Here are their answers. So I know that these answers by these Black Trump supporters, Black MAGA voters, African American voters, shocked the crap out of Van Jones. So let's take a listen.
We started off the broadcast tonight with the president's cabinet shakeup, and that's, of course, only a fraction of what's unfolded over the last 102 days of the second Trump administration. The question is, what are the voters making of it all? CNN's Van Jones has been talking to Trump supporters dating back to 2016. He is, as you know, a Democrat who is former senior advisor to President Obama. For tonight's report, he met with a small group of Black voters, a man and woman from South Carolina and another woman from North Carolina, all of whom voted for President Trump. CNN's exit polling shows Mr. Trump got 8% of the Black vote in 2016, and that grew slightly into the teens over the next two elections.
13%,
2024. Report from Greenville, South Carolina.
know.
And here we are in South Carolina with 3 Trump voters. You weren't always a Republican.
No, actually, I come from a family that was like super Democratic. My first time voting, I voted Democrat. I voted for Joe Biden.
What about Trump appealed to you?
Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, you can.
I mean, part of it is he's an asshole. I like authenticity.
You voted for Obama then you voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, but 2020 you voted for Donald Trump. Well, what made the change?
I began listening to someone, her name is Candace Owens.
Shout out to Candace.
And I read her book, and it just opened my eyes to maybe he's not this person that I have been led to believe that he was.
So you voted against Trump in 2016,
Yes.
but then in 2020 you voted for him?
Absolutely.
Why?
I saw how things were going during his first term, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I was pleased with what was happening. I saw the economy getting better. I saw country relations in certain countries getting better.
What are some things that he's doing that you do like?
For me, I like the border. I just don't like the idea of someone coming here illegally and getting benefits that can serve my community. So that's the reason why I support him on that border policy.
When you think about the border, you think about people coming here who are getting more help than people who live here, who are born here.
Yeah, and I got that perspective not from news channels. I got it from social media. TikTok is like a holy grail. We even see it with the things that we learn about the United States government. Outside of the United States, people are showing Americans, hey, look at what's going on. Do y'all know that your government is doing this? Have you seen this? Have you looked at it from this perspective?
You know, people, when they think about a Trump voter, they usually think about like a white dude with like a red hat on and a pickup truck. And y'all are not that at all.
Don't be a racist, man.
Donald Trump's team went in, they took down Harriet Tubman's picture for a quick minute. They're trying to like knock out the black museums. What does that have to do with the price of eggs, and how did that impact you?
In some way.
Okay, we're gonna run that back. See what I mean with Vance Jones? This is what I'm saying. Now, depending on what Republican or what conservative person would have said this, the media would have been all over this. Oh my God, Trump said a racist comment. J.D. Vance said a racist comment. I don't know, like Pete Hegseth, whatever. Someone said a racist comment, right? But Van Jones says this, and nobody says anything about it. He says, normally when you think about the average Trump voter, you think about somebody who has like a white dude with a pickup truck and a MAGA hat on. Okay, so that's just crazy, right? Like all of those things are crazy because literally I check all 3 of those boxes except the white part. So literally I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, so it's like you're saying that the average Trump voter looks like that, but there are people who check all of those boxes and they're just not white. So who's really the racist? Or at least who's thinking from a racist perspective? Because I'm like, man, that's crazy. Like that's like saying nobody of color voted for Trump and he had 13% of the black vote. Come on, man.
Think about a Trump voter, they usually think about like a white dude with like a red hat on and a pickup truck. And y'all are not that at all. So Donald Trump's team went in, they took down Harriet Tubman's picture for a quick minute. They're trying to like knock out the black museums. What does that have to?
Just because the hat's red doesn't mean it's MAGA. I'm just saying.
A quick minute, they're trying to like knock out the black museums. What does that have to do with the price of eggs, and how does that impact you?
In some ways, it's a slap in the face. In other ways, I don't care. I care more about how I'm going to take care of my children.
I don't think the average American cares about that. I know I am sick and tired of seeing black people sit there and complain about something, but not taking the action and steps to actually try to change things in an appropriate manner.
Under the Trump and Biden administration, they came to certain agreements with police departments to be less brutal toward the black community. Trump has now ended all that. How does that help the black community?
I have a lot of issues with police reform and just with how police officers are treated as a whole. My husband is currently going through the process to become a police officer. The amount of hatred that cops get, even the best ones, I think has become a huge problem because it has been, especially around election times when it definitely comes out of like, oh no, the cops are bad, the cops hate you because you're black. They're immediately deemed as evil.
This man is talking about running for a 3rd term. Now, What do you think about that?
The third term,
It's illegal,
for me, absolutely not. I think it's at the end of these 4 years, it's time to move on.
This is a prime example of him trolling people because people have said, like, oh, if he gets in the office, he's going to be a dictator. He's going to try to run for a third term. So he's like, okay, y'all think I'm going to do it? I'm going to mess with y'all and say this to pick y'all up.
I thought you loved this man because he's so authentic and he's such a
But you
truth
need to
teller.
know the difference between somebody trolling somebody, and this is a prime example of him being a troll.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump again, yes or no?
Yes, I would. Now, in the future, I am not a diehard Democrat or a diehard Republican. If there were a Democratic candidate who was more aligned for me, then I would vote Democrat.
If you go back in time, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
Yes.
I think I might know the answer on this.
Yes.
This is usually yes.
No, I'm sorry.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
1,000%, absolutely yes.
And Van Jones joins me now. It's interesting that most of the information that they are getting, or misinformation they may be getting, is coming from online.
Really, 100%. The thing that surprised me the most was how much social media is dictating, especially the younger guy.
Why are you
He
surprised
said,
about
look,
that?
I'm learning all this stuff about America that I didn't know. Like, where are you learning from? TikTok. China. Guys, you're a Republican and you're taking the Chinese narrative about your own country to heart. But that was a big part of their whole information ecosystem.
Yeah,
social
that's what
media.
you guys missed.
Does it seem to you that they follow news closely? I mean,
No, that was the other thing too. Is like, one of the women said, look, I do not watch any of the media. She says, I have some influencers I follow, Candace Owens being a big deal, and Newsmax. And that is their information system. And listen, these are hardworking people. They're good people. They care about the country, but they are in a completely different information environment than people who I talk to every day. And James, thanks very much.
Right, because they're not getting it from mainstream media. And you know what's crazy to me about this? Look how shocked Van Jones is about that. He's like, dude, first of all, it's not a Chinese narrative if they're getting it. Okay, I get it because China owning TikTok. Yeah, sure. But this is also like Americans putting this information on TikTok and teaching not just other Americans, but the world. So he's shocked that these probably mostly Gen Zers and younger millennials, they're getting a lot of their information from TikTok. And I'm like, dude, why are you shocked by something like that? That's like obvious. Who doesn't know that? Now I don't get my news from TikTok, but one of the younger ladies also brought up Candace Owens, right? So most of the times if I want to see something that's, let's say it's, what do I want to say? Like the news media is basically taking it and running with it, right? So it's a hot topic, right? And the news is being overzealous with it. I'll go to somebody like Candace Owens or Ben Shapiro or the Black Conservative, right? Or even Charlie Kirk, right? Carlson Tucker, something like that. And I'll just kind of see, what are they saying about it? What are their thoughts about it and things like that. I'm not going to go watch MSNBC. I don't even care if they're covering it. I'm not going to watch it. Now, I might watch clips of it and take it with not a grain of salt, more like a whole spoonful, right? Because MSNBC, like they're weird. Just like 60 Minutes did something weird with Kamala Harris's interview. This when mainstream media, when they do things like this, they are not going to be trusted. We're not going to trust them. So there are certain news outlets and sources that I go to that you would, I guess, not call mainstream media, but I would say more honest media, in my opinion. All right, guys, so let's jump over to Cliff Buell. We're going to end the live stream with a clip from Cliff. Shout out to Cliff Buell. Topic of today, are you headed to heaven or hell? Famous cartoon creator follows Jesus. Let's take a listen. So this is inspiration, more on the inspirational side.
Watch this. Excuse me, sir, how old were you when you made your first million?
My first million?
Yeah.
I guess you could say I started prospering in my 30s.
And what did you do for an actor in Los Angeles?
Okay, well, I created your childhood. That's a weird thing to say. Well, did you ever see The Fairly Odd Parents?
Yes.
Did you ever see Danny Phantom?
Yes.
Okay, well, I created both those shows.
I interviewed for 1 minute for the show real quick. So I mean now, 16 years old. What's the best advice you can give to any 20-year-old watching this right now?
If I had to talk to my 20-year-old self, I would say to them 100%, do not be afraid and seize every opportunity. And I always say to people, opportunities are like comets. You know, the comets that go through space. They're very beautiful and amazing, but they don't come around very often. It might be a very long time till you see another one.
How did you navigate ownership rights when you created these shows with Nickelodeon?
Well, I made sure I surrounded myself with very smart people. My creators aren't very good salespeople. So when you want to market yourself, you need someone that can help you sell. The Bible says there's safety in a multitude of counselors.
Do you believe in God?
Absolutely, 100%. I was in my mid-30s when I discovered who Jesus was. Once he became my Lord and Savior, I started answering to him and not Hollywood. Because Hollywood changes every day, but Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Shout out to him. He says, once Jesus became my Lord and Savior, I started answering to him and not Hollywood, because Hollywood changes every single day.
Hollywood, because Hollywood changes every day, but Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
But Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Watch this. Excuse me, sir. How old are you?
It's every opportunity. And I always say to people, opportunities are like comets. You know, the comets that go through space. They're very beautiful and amazing, but they don't come around very often.
He said opportunities are like comets, the comets that go through space. They're very amazing and beautiful, but they don't come around often, and it might be, seize everyone you get. They're very beautiful and amazing,
but they don't come around.
But they don't come around very
often. It
might be a very long time till you see another.
Very long time till you see another one.
How did you navigate ownership rights when you created these shows with Nickelodeon?
Well, I made sure I surrounded.
So the Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom. So I'm sure you guys know who those are. Those cartoons are. I'm aware of the Fairly Odd Parents. I probably have seen Danny Phantom, probably, but it's not ringing a bell. Let me see what this looks like. Clearly, if I have to look it up, I probably. Oh yeah, Danny Phantom. I know what that is. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, so he made both of those, and he's a follower of Christ. That's awesome. I love the way that he says, like, through a multitude of counselors. So, second person to bring it up, other than Stephen Smith, and these guys aren't getting this from just anywhere, right? So, I'm trying to see where he said it at.
Okay, well, I created both those shows.
I interviewed for 1 minute for the show real quick. So I mean now, 16 years old. What's the best advice?
Safety in a multitude of counselors.
Do you believe in God?
Absolutely, 100%.
He says the Bible says that there's safety in a multitude of counselors, right? So just like Stephen A. Smith brought it up, same thing. And these guys are not pulling it out of a hat. They're pulling it out of one of my favorite books in the entire world, the Bible. And what does it say right here? It says the proverb, in the multitude of counsel, there is wisdom, highlights the value of seeking diverse perspectives and advice when making decisions. It suggests that a wide range of opinions can lead to better outcomes compared to relying solely on one's own judgment. Well, what do you know? So this is something that I love this proverb so much because I lived the total opposite of this proverb most of my life. I was very much the type of person that would say things like, you know, if I had things going on, it's kind of like the Lil Wayne verse that went extremely viral till this day, and it'll probably live on forever, even though I don't want it to. But what is it? Real G's move in silence like lasagna? It's something like that. So I was trying to think about if I was going to say it wrong, but I know now that you guys heard me say it, you know which one I'm talking about. That silent part, like, for a long time, this was like a mantra for me, right? Like, if I felt like I was doing really good things, or as we say, making moves, I felt like I needed to be silent about it, you know, and then at some point, I would just come out, like, with something really, really big, and I could, like kind of shock everybody based on the hard work I've been doing in the background and now what I could produce. And it's so stupid. It's so annoying because literally when I started to follow Jesus and walk with God, I realized, like, wow, Jesus lived the total opposite of this. He actually goes on record to say, so if you're going to go by your own judgment and say to yourself, I should keep this to myself, because if other people know that I'm after something like this, or I aspire to do something like this, they'll wish me bad luck, and then I won't be able to accomplish it. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, really, dare I say, superstition. And because I did grow up in a pretty superstitious family, I can say that. But this proverb is genius. It's brilliant. And it's something that I really hope that you guys follow. And I hope that you not only follow it, it becomes a mantra in your life. Proverbs 11:14 states, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in a multitude of counselors there is safety. This proverb highlights the importance of seeking advice and counsel from multiple sources, emphasizing that reliance on individual opinions alone can lead to failure, while a collective approach to decision making fosters greater wisdom and security. So the proof is in the pudding. It's in the pudding, and the Bible says this. So these guys that are saying, hey, you know, this man says it because the young guy asked him, how did you be able to keep so many of your rights and you know, your royalties when you were selling yourself to Nickelodeon? And he says that these guys aren't really good salespeople. So, you know, the Bible says in a multitude of counselors there's safety. So he says, I surrounded myself around good people, you know, and I knew to ask these good questions. And he ended up keeping most of the property that soulfully and originally belonged to him. And that's an awesome thing. I mean, it's great how he used his relationship with Jesus to navigate his secular work life. And I do the same thing on my day-to-day. As a matter of fact, it's because of my relationship with Christ. It's probably the sole reason why I can sit here and say I do not hate my job. I don't, right? Now, someone might be like, are you working your dream job? I would say yes and no. You know, I'm working it to an extent where I get to use my mind a lot, and I get to use my my investigative skills a lot. And because that is an innate skill and gift that the Lord gave me, work sometimes feels really easy to me and super exciting. So that's a plus side of it. The other side of it is that the time that I get to serve in ministry, the times that I've gotten to preach, the times that I've gotten to lead a Sunday night service for, you know, well over a year straight. And, you know, I was the lead pastor of that service. Times where I've got to walk and counsel with people and watch their lives change, watch things happen that were devastating, and watch beautiful miracles take place. So all of it, because I get to do both things, because I just have that work-life balance, you could say, that flexibility at my secular job, and then God had just positioned me in my life at this point to where I just have the capacity to do both, and it's a pretty amazing thing. And because I can do both and I walk with Jesus, it's hard for me to say I don't like my job or I don't like my boss or I'm displeased with this. It's like, yeah, sure, year one, year two, I was a little bit brattier when I started at my job. I was younger than what I am now. Still have the same amount of hair though. The Lord is good. But with that being said, you grow in wisdom, you know. So even back then, maybe year one or two, where I'm like, I don't know if I like my job, you know, more of it was more of an emotional response. You know, some of it was fear-based. You know, we could talk about that on another live stream. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. Remember, you can always fast forward to the end of the live stream and get the Christian clip it, snap it, take it, send it to somebody. Sometimes we're afraid to send people things, especially godly things, you know, because we're like, I don't want the person to get mad at me or think I'm weird, or I don't know if this even will resonate. Don't worry about it. If the Holy Spirit's asking you to do it, just be obedient. If he's asking you to do it, he has a reason why he's asking you to do it. So with that being said, guys, I will see you guys next time, which is tomorrow. We will be back here for our daily live stream. Had a lot to do today, had appointments and certain things that I had to get done on my checklist, so I got on here late. Tomorrow we will be on here around 15:30, 1600. So with that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care of yourselves, take care of one another, love yourselves and love one another. Peace.